Can you share with me 4 ugly words you used to tell yourself?
Oh wow, the first one would be ugly. Ugly, stupid, dumb, unworthy. I have also gone as far as to call myself the B word. I've also gone as far as to call myself the W word. And I had gotten to a point in my life where I did not need an abuser to abuse me because I became so good at verbally abusing myself that I didn't need anyone to verbally abuse me anymore or emotionally abuse me, because oftentimes that's what happens with victims. I became good at doing it myself. I could walk past a mirror and smile, and then in the same time call myself ugly. And I like to call it a dressed up mess. That's exactly what I was. A dressed up mess. I always maintained a smile. You would never know what was going on in my life. But that's what I was, a dressed up mess.
Wow.
Welcome back to Couture Uncovers True Stories. Today's guest is Lisa Council. She will share with us how she overcame her abuse and also built the confidence to tell her stories and help women today. So let's get started.
So Lisa, do you mind sharing a little small piece of your story?
Not at all. My name is Lisa Council, and I am a survivor of domestic violence of 33 years. I am a mom of a teenage daughter, and I overcame domestic violence about 5 years ago now. I had just got to a point in my life where I said enough was just enough for me, and I decided that I wanted to make a difference in my life, and so that my daughter could ultimately have a better life as well. With me being a victim of domestic violence, my sister was also a victim as well, my only sister, and she lost her life to domestic violence in 1993. At that point in my life, even though I had lost my sister very tragically, I still had not gave up, unhealthy relationships. I don't know why I did not give them up, but I kept that cycle going. And at one point in my life, I just decided that I thought that if I didn't date anymore, that would help. And needless to say, that didn't help either, because when I got back into a relationship after not dating for about 6 years, I went right back into another unhealthy relationship. And when my daughter was in 5th grade at the time, she was being bullied really badly by a young boy at school. And it started off as just like, I guess shoving and teasing and calling her names. And the one thing that I never thought about, I guess, when she was very young at an early age, that at some point she too might experience being bullied or being in unhealthy, relationships or friendships. That never really crossed my mind. And then I had to look at the fact too of just what was she learning from me being in an unhealthy relationship. And so that's when I knew that it was time for me to break the cycle.
I remember you sharing that story, and I was like, wow. And I remember you just sharing that you almost killed the little boy.
I did. I did.
He was like, nobody about to touch my daughter. I lost her.
Yes, I did.
And I was like, wow. So my question to you, do you think knowing your family history is important?
Absolutely. I think it's very important. Oh, I know for a fact, let me take thing out of it. I know for a fact that knowing your family history is very important. We live in a society, and especially as African Americans, where what goes on in my house, we're taught stays in my house. We tend to brush those family secrets under the rug, and what they do is they resurface, or they never go anywhere. We never deal with them, we never talk about them, and what we don't realize is that it affects generations and generations and generations. If no one deals with what's going on, and if no one talks about what's going on or what's happened, then the cycle just continues. I didn't realize how important my family history was for me until I started becoming more and more educated on domestic violence and being in a sister circle where we become educated and we gain therapy. And one of the very things that I learned further on down the line is that it gave me an understanding of why I stayed in unhealthy relationships, because ultimately I won't say that it started at home in my house, but it started from when I was a little girl. It actually it did not start in my house, but it started in my family. My sister and I looked very much alike, but the only difference was she was light and I'm dark. We both had very long hair, but my hair was a little more coarse and curly, and her hair was straighter. And I would get teased, with words saying, "Oh, your hair is nappy, your hair isn't like your sister." People in our family would compare us to one another. We went to school, and she was 5 years older than I was, and I remember as young as I think the 3rd grade, I would get teased in school, or not teased, but even teachers would come up to me and say, "Oh, you're so pretty to be dark," and
What does that mean?
I never understood what that means, but what I did know is that it had an effect on me, a very negative effect on me. And so from a very early age, I had low self-esteem. I didn't understand that, of course, at the time. And even friends would compare my sister and I to one another. I never understood why my sister didn't have to get her hair pressed, and I did have to get my hair pressed. And it was something that I never really sat down and talked about with my parents, because I didn't know what feelings I was dealing with, and I didn't know how to deal with them until I became an adult.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's good you said that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question, was what words that you heard in your childhood, like constantly heard? Like, what words did you constantly hear?
One of the words that I constantly heard, and I think that it's a word that we in the African American community use so loosely, nappy head. That was one of the words that I heard constantly. And I have curly hair, but I was always called just or referred to as nappy headed. And one of the things that stood out for me most was, you're so pretty to be dark. Well, what does that mean? I never understood what that. So it made me feel very ugly. So I yearned to be light skinned. I wanted to be light. I wanted to be someone else. I would see other people and, kind of imagine how it would be to be them, or how it would be to be light. I did not want to be me. So, and another word that stuck out in my head was fast. fast. And I say that because at a very early age, I was always considered to just be fast or, loose. And what I was dealing with at the time is when I was 13, I was raped. And instead of, someone coming to the rescue and us talking about what happened, it was something that was never discussed. So I was labeled at a very early age as being fast. Yes, yeah.
So that goes back to like sweeping stuff.
Sweeping stuff under the rug. When I was raped at 13, it was something that my family and I, we dealt with it and we never talked about it again. And I just, kind of like internalized all of my emotions, which at that time I didn't even probably know what emotions were at, so early. So I just took all of my feelings and I hid them, in a box somewhere. And when I became older is when those emotions and those feelings started to come out.
We are learning that.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, my next question is, do you see yourself doing the same thing like your parents today?
I did see myself doing the same thing as my parents at some point, but what I have done now in the past 4 years is I have tried to do things much differently. And one of those things is to communicate and communicate effectively and share. And that's very important for me as a mom. Just communicate with my daughter, give her a chance to be honest and open about her feelings, and share my life experiences with her, because oftentimes in growing up in my household and in a lot of households, we as parents, we think that if we keep things from our children, we're actually protecting them and shielding them. But in my opinion, it does just the opposite. So what I'm doing differently from what my parents did is I'm sharing and I'm giving my daughter a chance to also share her feelings and just have like open communication and dialogue instead of I'm the parent and you do as I say and or you're the child. Absolutely.
My next question to you, what two advice would you give to the next sister?
The advice that I would give to the next sister is it's important that you love yourself, you speak life into yourself and into your situations, and you cannot have a healthy or a loving relationship with anyone until you love self first. Get to know yourself, I would say. And if you have any issues that you're dealing with now or that you dealt with in the past, deal with those issues, deal with those emotions, be open with yourself. If you've gone through situations where, for instance, you're in unhealthy relationships, one of the keys to being set free is forgiveness. And not only forgiving the person who has hurt you, but forgiving yourself as well. And sitting down and learning what made you get into that unhealthy relationships or ships or friendships in the first place. And also, the second key is to seeking therapy. You have to get therapy. And then thirdly, you have to surround yourself with people who have gone through the same thing or are going through those same things. We go through the same things, but our stories are, different. There will be some instances in there where things, you know, will be familiar, but ultimately your story is your story, and you will find differences, but it is very important to forgive, seek therapy, and surround yourself with people who have gone and are going through the same thing. And the fourth thing, which is very important, is to share your story so that someone else can know that they too can come out of any situation and move forward.
And so, I also want to ask you, how did you build your confidence and be able to share your story?
Wow. I would have to say that my back was pushed up against the wall, if we want to be honest. I was put in a place where a friend who I had grew up with reached out to me on social media, and I hadn't seen this friend since high school, as a matter of fact. And they sent me a friend request on Facebook, and I accepted that friend request, and at some point we just started talking about life and family and, you know, things that we had gone through, you know, our careers, so on and so forth. And this particular friend reached out to me one day and just said, you know, God told me to share my story with you. And at that point, they had gone through an unhealthy relationship and they wanted to share that with me. And you know, I was told that they you know, they're never inclined to share their story with, you know, everyone, but it was just put on their heart at that particular time to share their story with me. And as they began to share, I began to share my story about domestic violence, and I also shared my sister's story, which is something that I'm not very open about at all. Well, I have been in the past 4 years, but
In the beginning.
Yeah. And as I began to just share little tidbits of my story, they said, well, you know, I have someone that I would like to put you in contact with. And I said, well, okay, sure. And that person that they put me in contact with through a friend request via Facebook was Queen of Fee, who is the founder for Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags. And I didn't really pay any attention to it, to be honest. And I said, okay. And Queen of Fee, who is the founder of Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags, reached out to me. And she introduced herself via social media. She told me not much about her organization other than the fact that I knew that she worked with victims as well as survivors. And she says, hey, this is your day to share your story. And I said, well, what does that mean? You know, and I accepted. I accepted, you know, wholeheartely. I said, well, you know what? It's time. And she gave me my date. She drafted up. She asked me to send her a picture, send her a short bio. I did so, and I've been sharing my story ever since. And I had never met her in person until months later. She started sending me dates as to where she wanted me to be and who I would be sharing my story with. And then one day we met at that time at a homeless shelter. And I actually can say from me sharing my story and working very closely with Queen of Fee and Domestic Violence Wears Many Tags is where I gained my therapy and my healing. So it's been a wonderful journey, I have met wonderful family. I can't even say friends, family, sisters, brothers, and the journey started there and it continues.
Yes. And it's like, just being with her, she helps you build your confidence.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
She also makes you feel comfortable.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what I love about that organization, especially it's a non-judgment.
Yes.
Judgment organization. So I
Right.
really love that.
She makes you feel very comfortable. It's like you said, Sister Chanel, is non-judgmental. We don't judge one another. We are there for one another 24/7,
Yes.
non-stop. It doesn't stop. And the one thing I can say is it taught me what true sisterhood and brotherhood really is. It really has. And it has made go into therapy, or they share their stories and they just say, you know, we see it, that's it. But for me, it has made me want to dig deeper within myself, deeper into my family history, and deeper into not just sharing my story, but becoming, you know, educated, because the key to stopping the cycle is awareness. But the most important part to that too is education. You have to be educated. And it has just given me a passion to just be, you know, educated. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So with 5 tags, out of the 5 tags that she shared with us, which tag was yours?
So I am a survivor of all 5 tags: sexual, emotional, verbal, physical, financial. I am a survivor of all of those tags. Yes, I am.
Where did you get the word set apart from? What made you feel like you set apart?
You know, I came up with set apart because I was going through sharing my story and the healing process. And even today, on a daily basis, I have to die daily, as we say in the Bible, as the Bible says. And I have to, on a daily basis, transform my thinking and my mindset, because it's so easy to go back there. One look at something could trigger an emotion. One word can trigger an emotion. So when I started going through that healing process, and that healing process is almost like scaling back an onion. You know, an onion has so many layers to it. So there's so many layers, and I had gotten to a point where, as I was healing, I felt much lighter. And God just gave me those words: you're set apart. And I try to live by those words daily. You know, you're set apart. I'm transformed.
That's
Yeah.
nice word. When I seen, I was just like, wow, that's so powerful. And I was just like, I wanted to know where she got it from. So I'm just amazing to hear you say where you got the name from.
Mhm.
And it fits you.
Oh my. Thank you.
And before we go, where can the followers find you? What social media can they find you at? to
So,
support your story?
Absolutely. I am on Facebook, any of my work, and Queen of Fees work on domestic violence, wears many tags on Facebook.
That's fine. And do you have any other advice that you want to give to them to start to feel comfortable of sharing their story, or comfortable to even just come out and ask questions?
I would say to anyone who is thinking about sharing their story, or just want to ask questions, I would always say to reach out to DVWMT.org, which you can find on all social media outlets. It is a very loving and non-judgmental organization filled with sisterhood and brotherhood. And I would say to anyone who's thinking about sharing their story to, before you do that, to seek out and gain therapy first, because it's not an easy thing to do. And you want to make sure you're comfortable with who you're doing it with and who may be asking you to do it. You want to be comfortable in your environment, because it's not an easy thing to do. Sharing can be very painful because it brings out a lot of feelings and emotions that you may have not known that you were dealing with. So I would say that prior to that, seek therapy, because before you can feed into anyone, you have to make sure that you're fed.
I just want to say thank you so much, Lisa, for coming out, sharing your story, and just me hearing your story. You built my confidence into my story, and thank you so much for having your strength in telling your story and able to come out and share it with more people. So I thank you so much.
I thank you for having me. I love you, Chanel.
I love
Thank you so much.